The Wanderer. It was so much fun to read, from beginning to end. Total page turner, start to finish. I never wanted to stop, and as soon as it was done, I was annoyed. I was like, I just wanted more. And I think the part about it that I enjoyed the most was the character development. Every character's motive was clear. You understood why. You understood everyone's relationship with each other well. And the story was constantly moving. I never felt like there was a lull as I was reading along. But I feel like the one thing that I caught the most as I was reading this was the spirit. It was very rich with the spirit from beginning to end. I could tell that the story was incredibly inspired. More so than most stories that I've read or written. And I can't help but read this and think this had to have come from somewhere else. It had to have been inspired of the Lord. Because I found myself shaking my head a lot at how unbelievably well written it was. I think as far as my favorite characters go, I loved Wilbur. I thought he was great. I really enjoyed Mr. Pritchard. I loved to hate him. I loved to hate Mr. Pritchard. And I loved the mystery of Samuel. Jack was such a sweet character. Every time he was around, I just wanted to give the kid a hug, And all along I was wondering what's going to happen, what's going to happen with the cult. Why is the cult so important? You know what I mean? Why is Laura so important to the story? What's really happening here? I feel like one of the through messages of this entire story is everything happens in God's timing. And following him leads to a better outcome than not following him. We see what happens when mistakes are made. When we feel something's wrong, but we decide to go with what we want versus what feels right. You know what I mean? But more than anything, listening to the Lord, even though it doesn't make any sense, was one of the biggest through lines. And I related to that. I feel like there are many times in my life where I could tell the Lord was wanting me to do something or to go somewhere, and I was going, what? This makes no sense. Why now? And why would I leave my entire support system? Stuff like that. Like, why would I spend this money when I don't feel like I have the money to spend? But we just move with him. We move where he wants us to. We go where he wants us to go. We do what he wants us to do. And as we go, when we take that leap of faith, then doors open. It's not the other way around. We don't say, okay, I'm happy to do this, but you need to give me this first. That's not the way most blessings work, or like even the path that he asks us to walk works. We need to take the step first, and then he opens the doors for it to work, for things to work out the way we need it to, the way he intends it to happen. And that's the biggest through line I saw in this manuscript, in this book. And I just really relate to that, and I find it to be absolutely beautiful. And I feel like this book caught the spirit of Christmas in a way that no other book does. Through struggle, through hope, through love, and through the power of the Lord. It's just very beautifully written. And I'm so excited for it to be out in the world, because I never wanted to put it down. I read it with my girlfriend, who was also a beta reader in this, and every time we sat down and read, neither of us wanted to stop. We ended up reading well into the wee hours in the morning many times, and we just looked at each other and went, okay, one more page. Okay, one more section. Okay, next section. Well, now we gotta know what happens next. Well, now we need to know what happens to this person. Well, now we need to know what happens to this person. Like, it was so fun. I gotta say, that's my review. I also loved Seth. Seth was such a great character. I loved Audrey. My heart just breaks for that poor girl. And Mrs. Settles. My goodness, what a firecracker. She cracks me up, dude. Yeah, I loved watching Laura grow, and I loved her moments of empowerment. They were strong and they were powerful. So anyway, what a great, compelling story. And I gotta say, even as I was reading, there were moments where I was like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. I don't know about this. But then as I read, answers were revealed. Even the parts that I looked at and went, I don't know. But then it made sense later, and by the time it did make sense, I went, oh, this is so beautiful. Yes, I'm on board. I'm in. Like, it was, yeah, what a ride, what a thrill. And I encourage anyone to read it, whether you're Christian or non-Christian. Just read this book. You won't regret it. It's so beautiful. Anyway, my name is Madison Bills, and I'm so thankful to have had this experience to read this book.